Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. We just got the first of 3 streams outlining what we can expect in Curse of Osiris, and boy was this one jam-packed full of awesome. We learned a lot more about the characters, destinations, gear, and of course the new raid Lair activity launching with this first expansion. For this video I decided to break up all of that juicy info into 7 talking points. So without further ado, let's jump in. So first up, let's talk about the story and some of the themes that are going to be coming in Curse of Osiris. First up, we got a good look at Osiris and what he might be up to in the full version of the opening cinematic. We also heard the voice of his ghost Sagira for the first time, which sounds pretty awesome. We also got a good look at Mercury and some of the playable spaces, which is titled Fields of Glass as it was in Destiny 1. Then we got the new public event featured here, which Bungie has described as the largest public event to date, and they're going to be showing us that public event during next week's stream. But aside from that, the Fields of Glass is a fully playable environment with public events and enemies to fight. There are also the Cabal here as well, since it is the closest destination to the Almighty, which you can still spot in the horizon, which is pretty awesome. Now, this area also features a portal to the Infinite Forest, which is a section of Mercury that is outside of time and space. And that leads us to the second talking point, which is the Infinite Forest. So we learned a little bit more about what the Infinite Forest actually is and where it takes place. It turns out that the Vex have completely hollowed out the core of Mercury and have turned it into a reality engine, which allows them to simulate and, quote, brute force reality. Sounds pretty epic. And it turns out that the cinematic we just watched does not take place in the Vault of Glass, but in fact it takes place in the Infinite Forest and is a simulation that the Vex are running, so it seems like Osiris is now somewhere stuck inside the Infinite Forest and will have to go find him. Now, of course, the Infinite Forest is an ever-changing and ever-shifting environment that might result to having alternative versions of missions every time you play them, which is a very neat idea. I'm also very happy that they confirmed that it's not procedurally generated. I think procedurally generated environments can lead to lackluster or very confusing spaces, and I'm glad that Bungie has taken the time to really design every version of the Infinite Forest that is possible. This will lead to much more interesting and much more engaging encounters, and it will allow Bungie to hide away very specific secrets, which I'm looking forward to discovering. The other cool thing about the Infinite Forest, which was kind of a revelation during the stream, which is that it actually serves as sort of like a hub for different timelines inside of Mercury. It seems like inside the Infinite Forest, it features 3 what they call trees. One that you come out of, which represents the present. On to your right, we have a destroyed-looking tree that represents a dark future. And then we have a very pristine-looking tree to the left, which represents the past. And it looks like we're going to be able to venture out into those versions of Mercury. My guess is that they're going to feature portals not unlike the one you just came through to the Infinite Forest, which will include completely reworked versions of that surface. In fact, we got a glimpse into the dark future version of the lighthouse, which shows the sun that is actually dead, and it shows a field of just simply Vex eyeballs, which is very creepy. We also got a look at an in-game render of the lighthouse that is post-apocalyptic, so there's a good chance, at the very least for campaign purposes, we're going to be visiting this very dark future, which just sounds too awesome. I can't wait. And speaking of lighthouse, we have the lighthouse. That is the new sort of not quite social space, but serves as a safe zone, kind of like the church in EDZ, and it also features our destination vendor, which in this case is Brother Vance. He has returned from his role in Destiny 1, and this is where we will turn in our destination materials and the tokens that we get from activities, and we'll be able to redeem packages similar to how we do in the other destinations. The cool thing about this is that it does feature a portal out to the surface of Mercury. Again, you'll be able to do your missions and public events here, and then you can go into the portal to the Infinite Forest. It's all very seamless, and it looks like they spent a lot of time to make sure the experience is very good. Now, the other cool thing about the lighthouse is that it features the Forge. Now, they haven't given it a specific name yet, but I'm calling it the Forge because that's exactly what you're going to be doing. This is a way for you to forge your endgame weapons. The weapons in the endgame are not going to be available, of course, until after you beat the campaign, but you're going to be able to get a very specific set of weapons that you have to handcraft. Each of them are tied to a quest, and in fact, you're going to be able to track your progression through those quests on a very interesting looking tracker on the wall. It'll feature glyphs for the weapons that you've already collected, and will present you quests to make the ones that you don't have yet. So my guess is you'll have to go on some kind of world quest to collect materials and then come back to the forge and craft the weapon. It sounds pretty cool on paper, but we still don't know how extensive the quests are or really how good the weapons are. We'll just have to wait and see, but it sounds promising, and I'm glad that they're taking steps to make the game a little bit more interesting in some of these endgame aspects. And speaking of endgame, we can move on to activities, starting with the introduction of heroic strikes. It's about time. We have a recommended light of 270, we have rare and legendary engrams as rewards. I'm personally hoping for strike exclusive gear, although they didn't tell us anything too specific about them, but I hope that this is just part of what they've done to all strikes to make them worth running, because as of right now, they still don't really have a purpose unless you really want that Vanguard set of gear. I hope they take steps to make it count towards your progression, because that's what we really need. Maybe heroic strikes are the answer to that. Hopefully we'll be learning more about it next week, and if there is strike exclusive gear, maybe that's a topic for stream number 3. Fingers crossed. Next up, we have new milestones. During the stream, they gave us a preview of the new director, which features Mercury right there on top. But off to the left, of course, we see our milestones. They didn't go over it, but we got a sneak peek at a couple really interesting things that might be coming to the game. First up, we have a milestone which has the Eververse logo. Some people think that this might be for the Clarion Call, although I don't see how Clarion Call really relates to Eververse. I don't think this is it. But this could just be a way for you to get more bright engrams. If I had to guess, like a wild guess, I would say that this maybe says complete a prestige activity this week to gain a bundle of bright engrams. That would be definitely worth the effort. Now, of course, that wouldn't be enough to make prestige activities worth their time, but this is definitely one good step. The second new milestone we see is a milestone with the adventure logo on them. We were all complaining that adventures are sort of useless right now since there's no real incentive to do them in the endgame, but maybe this is a way for them to grant you maybe another luminous engram for completing adventures. Maybe it'll have you go to the week's Flashpoint destination and complete the 4 available adventures, go to the destination vendor and they'll give you that luminous engram. That would be definitely worth doing adventures. Again, they haven't shown us the milestone tab, so these are just my best guesses, but either way, it's exciting to see that they're trying to incentivize some of those activities and get you more rewards. Now finally, at long last, let's talk about raid layers. A few weeks ago when we heard the term raid activity, a lot of us were in fear that this might just mean a new encounter to Leviathan or something along those lines. I personally thought it might be an endless horde mode that took place inside of Leviathan, but we're all wrong. And before you comment hashtag no new raid, let's go over this in a little bit more detail and try to understand what Bungie's mentality is here. So first up, the raid layer is described as shorter than a normal raid like Leviathan. They feature all new encounters, plural, and a new final boss. They will be introducing a new raid layer with every new expansion. So Curse of Osiris gets the first raid layer, and DLC 2 gets the second one. In fact, in the new director, Leviathan has a whole splash page to itself, where of course you have the main encounter in the middle, and then you have the first raid layer on the left-hand side. Now, of course, some people are upset that this is all sort of within Leviathan, but I honestly think it's better than a half-baked raid or a glorified strike. I'm looking at you, Crotozend. In fact, I might expect it to kind of be like Crotozend. Crotozend was jokingly referred to as a glorified strike, but it still was super difficult at the time, and it was a completely different experience. I think the good thing about calling it a raid layer is that it properly sets your expectations rather than you being disappointed that it wasn't as epic as Leviathan. They're sort of leaning into it being okay for them to find a middle ground between strikes and raids. So this way we'll have the yearly epic raid, and then they'll be adding onto it with different activities which feature completely new encounters and again a new boss at the end. And in fact, if this continues into Year 2 with Year 2's raid having the same layout, then we're going to have much more raid content than we ever did in Destiny 1, which I think overall everyone will be happier with. Of course, these are untested waters, and we'll have to play the first raid layer to see if it's up to snuff, but I have a pretty good feeling about it considering the details we know of the first raid layer. So let's talk about that. So first up, it's called Eater of Worlds. It's described to take place below the palace at the top of the World Eater, so I think you can expect the environments to be completely different and potentially have new enemy types, maybe even the Vex. The World Eater has been theoretically traveling the galaxy eating planets, so anything is possible. In addition to that, it's going to feature brand new rewards, new guns, new armor, new cosmetics, my guess is like shaders and such. I'm personally very much looking forward to it. Yeah, you set boots down in the same place you did before, but then you go through that main door that we've never been able to go through, and it will lead you down into the belly of Leviathan, which I think is really cool. Now with that, they're bringing all of the activities up to 300 power recommended from normal mode, so that means both Leviathan and Eater of Worlds are going to be recommended 300 from normal. My guess is 330 for prestige, and with the heroic strikes being at 270 recommended, my guess is that the Nightfall will also be 300 with the prestige at 330. And that's pretty much the stream in a nutshell. We got a lot of really cool stuff. If you haven't watched the stream, I highly urge you do so. You can watch the VOD on their Twitch page if you head over to twitch.tv/Bungie. Again, we're getting another stream next week on Tuesday, and then we're going to get another stream the week after that on the following Wednesday. So definitely tune into those. We're going to be learning a lot more about that. And of course, as usual, you can expect a full breakdown of those streams right here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you'll know when I post. Aside from that, I want to remind you that I will be streaming all week on Twitch, so head on over if you want to talk about the new DLC. There's a lot to discuss here, and I love hanging out with you guys while playing Destiny. So head on over to twitch.tv/futurefoe and give me a follow there. I also love playing with all of my followers, so definitely head on over and check it out. Anyways, what do you think of Curse of Osiris? Do you think it's shaping up to be well? Of course, this is all separate from the quality of life changes that we'll be getting at the same time, so remember, this is just Curse of Osiris content. So do you think it sets up a good precedent moving forward for future expansions? Let's discuss. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time.